Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, and with this video, I'll be discussing my thoughts on episode 3 of the anime series Masamune-kun's Revenge. And I gotta say, it actually took reaching the halfway point of this episode before I felt fully invested in it again. I almost felt like it was backtracking on the emotional give and sway that I had from the first 2 episodes of the series, the intrigue, the being compelled by it, and everything like that. I just wasn't feeling it for the first half of this episode, wherein we're basically focusing on Makabe having to become the tutor of his friend in class Kojiro and making an impromptu bet with Aragaki, who also has a similar scenario playing out with Koiwai, her maidservant. And it's just, oh man, it was like, this is kind of cliche, kind of stupid, and it just didn't feel like we were making any progress. But then when we get to the half point, we see that, after the fact, unfortunately, Makabe, for all the chip on his shoulder and the certainty within himself that he was, capable scholastically, especially teamed up with Kojiro to get a higher score, lo and behold, this coincides with the entire class. Like, if they fail these impromptu exams, they're going to have to take supplementary summer classes, basically attend summer school. And we're not talking the Mark Harmon movie. Just basically it's he and Aragaki. They are the only two, for whatever reason, as convenience and coincidence might have it, they're the only two who end up having to attend this class. And apparently Koiwai is a master manipulator, pulling the puppet strings in the background, orchestrating things so that Aki feels so bad, kind of, for Makabe, in this whole complete fiction she's outlined where, oh, he got a bad score and he broke down crying in class and he went to the nurse and they found, like, suicidal implements where he was going to cut himself and all this kind of stuff. Just playing on her, heartstrings. And for a very abrasive, walking cold shoulder like Aragaki, it's almost, mind-bending that she would actually believe this, number one, but then become sympathetic to the point of actually agreeing to meet Makabe for a date, and then what's more, getting herself decked out in a complete, sort of gothic Lolita superhero anime character cosplay outfit, which she believes, I guess based on the literature, Koiwai gave her to read, like, the ins and outs of dating, was like the first rule of breaking the ice between two people when you're going to be going on a date for the first time and all this stuff. And you got everybody just staring at her. You got the one sort of hefty guy coming up asking to get a picture with her and then saying something like, oh, 3D girls are nothing, made me think back to Steins Gate, actually, the cat from that show, who said something very similar. But I mean, they go to this horror movie, and Koiwai is the one who set all of this up. She's kind of perturbed that here is Makabe. She just wants Makabe to leave everything to her, all the planning and the timing and everything. She's again a master manipulator. She's strategizing how to best affect Aki, and not, as I first assumed, in the negative. But basically, she's trying to give, Aki this this promotion to think better of herself, to become less of a bitch, to become less of a psycho, and gain a newfound appreciation for her life and who she is and the things she has, all that kind of stuff. She's trying to wind Aki back from this very cold and abrasive personality she is, and very scathing personality at that, to give people, very humiliating nicknames and do this in humiliating scenarios where that's the whole chief purpose. She wants to really get at them and attack them. But what is it born out of? Aki, in her conversation with Makabe after the horror movie that they're both shocked they were going to be attending, they didn't know it was going to be a horror movie. And it seemed like there was an orgy going on in this thing too. I don't know what the hell they were watching. But after the fact, Aki basically relates to, or at least peripherally hints at, some sort of tragedy or something that happened in her youth, in her past, that makes her have to consume so much. When she's basically asked by Makabe, he's like, you want to have something to eat? She's like, of course I do. And you hear like a fart noise. I guess it's her stomach. stomach, letting you know she is hungry, she's starving, and so I'm really wondering what this is. If it's something psychosomatic or something like that. It would be interesting if it spoke to loosely my speculation that maybe there's more to the story of Aki's, having wished Makabe, not knowing that this is the same cat, much older, because he was so fat as a child, and she was caring about him, concerned about him, was trying to primp him up in a sense, kind of similarly to how Koiwai is now doing to her, but in a much more manipulative fashion is Koiwai doing it. But trying to, get basically Makabe at the time as a child to, gain confidence and feel stronger and, more vital and just overall confident, face his demons, face bullies and not walk away from them and all that kind of stuff. Not be running scared all of his life, and to appreciate who he is for what he is, but make himself the best version of himself he can be. And it's interesting to see that sort of contrast with Aki, where there are still elements of that, in the fact that, of course, when he breaks the news to her, the whole cosplay thing, that really wasn't, that's not the rule, that you're just kind of standing out, you're like a sore thumb in the crowd, and she decides to get a different kind of outfit, under the guise of, I'm going to check out the sales and everything like that. And it's kind of sweet that, he agrees to do that for her benefit, because she's really just, she's about to drop, from shock when she realizes, wait, I'm wearing this, and this isn't the norm. This isn't what I'm supposed to do. And then, of course, he walks in on her inadvertently when she screams and she breaks down, has a very sort of vulnerable moment by herself, sees her in her lingerie, and she clocks him, and then ends up, as I say, speaking to that more kind-hearted aspect of her nature. She apparently somehow gets him up on a bench and makes a lap pillow of herself, which he appreciates, and he assumes Koiwai, it's Koiwai's doing. She had a hand in that. But really, it's again those hints and whispers of the kind-heartedness that is deep down in the center of Aragaki, and that kind of speaks to my speculation that will there be, whether or not it's something revealed in her past that she was more kind-hearted, which we do have some, little elements that we're seeing, little speckles of that in the flashbacks in this episode, and the realizations that Makabe is making about her. But also the fact that, what might end up happening is he may start falling for her genuinely. It's not always going to be about revenge for the sake of putting this bitch in her place. I think over time he's going to realize there is more to her. And maybe if he can, working in tandem with Koiwai, as we find out, Koiwai, again, as I say, her whole modus operandi in doing this, it's not actually seeking vengeance of her own accord. She wants to make her own life better, and as an extension of that, it's going to have to be something that is born out of making Aki's appreciation of herself better, of her own life better, and all this kind of stuff. And so it's going to be mutually beneficial all around if it all can work out. And it might be something that wins and molds over Makabe's whole motif of wanting to get after her and put her in her place. He could very well, sort of fall under her whims and become smitten with her all over again, like he was in childhood. And I like the progression in this episode where, like, they could have really just, which would have annoyed the hell out of me, they could have really just strung this along where we wouldn't already be at date number 1, impromptu though it may have been, and manipulated into it by Koiwai though it may have been on Aki's part and everything. I did not expect to have gotten this far so early, so I'm very appreciative of that, because I didn't want them to have to string it along and put a lot of filler in. I just want them to get to the point, as quickly as they can. And as long as we're seeing the characters evolving like this, and we have this kind of momentum, whereas, like I say, the first half of the episode, it didn't feel like there was as much momentum with the bet and everything. It just seemed contrived and conniving on the part of Makabe to make this bet and see who would get the higher score and yada, yada, yada. But then when we get to that turning point, that tipping point, they're on a date. They even though the reasoning is outlandish and hilarious, they are on a date. They are being molded and pushed together, and I'm glad we didn't have to wait, till episode 5 or 6 before we got there. And it makes me that much more excited to see what more there is going to be happening here, because of course, Koiwai in talking to Makabe at the end, and he's, you know, thanking her for the whole lap pillow thing. She has no idea what he's talking about, because that was all Aki. It was all on Aki doing that for him after clocking him one. But you have this other maid come out and, like, sort of ask in a very suggestive fashion, you know, oh, you're not usually talking to anyone other than Aki on the phone, let alone for that long. What's going on? Did you have some fun or something like that? And Koiwai is having fun, but it's like, it does make me wonder if anyone else is going to either get involved or, you know, try to assist and or undermine what Koiwai and Makabe are doing. You know, it's just all around an enjoyable show. And I'm glad that we did get that momentum of that date effect going on in the second half of the episode, because I almost couldn't bear it, like, thinking, well, if this doesn't amount to anything, if the whole test and the scores and the bet, all that stuff, if it doesn't amount to something, and we don't see these characters coming together in some way, shape, or form, it's just, I might not even be motivated to talk about it. It might just be, like, backward to me as far as the progression and the momentum goes. Thankfully, that wasn't the case, and it was all for a purpose. So I was able to gain a much greater appreciation of that first half of the episode with everything we got in the second half. And I can't wait to see where we go from here. I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below. If you've seen episode 3 of Masamune-kun's Revenge, if you're still enjoying it as I am, if you were surprised or grateful as I was that the second half of the episode saw them on an impromptu date and actually interacting in much friendlier a fashion, you know, even though she is still tsundere and everything in that dynamic. But, or if it's, you know, something you're just not really digging or interested in. Anything goes in the comments below. Just love having that conversation. Otherwise, that'll be pretty much it for me on this. Hope this video finds you well, and I'll catch y'all later. Peace.